What is actually the directory? So the directory is made up of entries that we have seen, and the entries are more or less related to, it has the file name or the directory name along with the location or the block number, or the starting block of that particular file or directory, right? So in Unix, how these directory are stored, so they are, the directories are also a regular file. Okay, so why we are talking about Unix? Because it is an open source operating system. Okay, so in Unix, the directory is nothing but a regular file. Now you may ask that then how we can differentiate between a regular file and a directory file. So the answer is, there is some information which is stored in the metadata which marked a file as a directory file. Okay, so there is there are lots and lots of metadata information related to owner, time, date, access, modified permission, etc., etc., that we have seen. Along with all those information, there is one more information which actually shows that whether the file is a directory file or a regular file. Okay, so Unix follow the same regular file infrastructure to store directory file as well. Okay, so basically Unix treat directory file as a regular file, you can say. Okay, so this is the structure it looks like. So there is some way to mark that this is a directory file. So among this metadata information, there is one bit which is reserved for the information to show that whether the file is a directory or not. And if that bit, particularly that particular bit, the value of that bit is D, it means it is a directory file. Okay, then there are some other metadata, and along with that we also seen that there are file names, maybe directory names, and the start disk location of those directory or files, right? Okay, so the operations that we have to perform basically is a searching operation. We have to search the directory, right? So the user may give an absolute path or a relative path depending upon the current location of the user. He or she may give absolute or relative path. Now what happened? A copy of user's current directory. Okay, so there is a command called pwd in Unix, which you can type to see what is the present working directory, or where are you exactly in the directory structure. Okay, so it will actually show you the entire path where you are from the root directory, right? So that copy, okay, uses current directory information. This information is actually stored or cached in the memory. Okay, we store the, or Unix store this information somewhere. Then what happened, if the user give relative path, we will use this cached information. If user give absolute path, then the operating system will just go to the disk and find the root directory and then continue to search from there, right? So whenever you give path, generally we start with root if we are giving absolute path, right? So slash home slash, sorry, not this slash, yes, slash home slash user. So depending upon operating system to operating system, the slash also vary. Okay, so in some system this is the way to traverse the path, right? Okay, so depending upon absolute or relative path, where the cached information is used or unused, right? Now to travel the path, Unix uses a function called namei. Okay, now namei, what it does is it does the actual directory search, right? So I am having the code of namei as well. So this is a sample code which says that what namei function is doing. So we are passing two arguments, whatever is the start disk location, the current location, and the path that is provided by the user. Okay, so the path is actually, you can assume it as an array, so path is a variable and the value is maybe x comma y comma z dot c. It means you have to go to folder x, then to folder y, and then you have to access z dot c file. Okay, something like that. So what is a path? Path is an array of strings, and then there is a for loop which will enumerate through each element of this path. Okay, and what it does is, if the directory location is not a directory file, okay, so what we are saying is I have to go to X, then go to Y, and then I have to access Z.C. In this case, X and Y should be a directory. If it is not a directory, then the function will give error. Okay, if it is a directory, then what we have to do, so suppose we are at the root and we get to directory number X. So what we have to do, we have to return the location of this X. So in the root directory, what is the location of path I? Okay, and the value of I is 0, for example. So I is 0, 1 and 2. So when I is 0, we are searching for X directory, right? So what we will pass, that current directory location is this, and you have to search for X. Okay, so in root folder, so root is also a directory, right? So in root directory, somewhere there is an entry of X. We have to go to that entry, and whatever location written in front of it, we have to return that location. Okay, so that location is returned in start directory location. Okay, and we have to keep this continue until unless all the elements, okay, or all the uh, in between nodes are traveled, or all the directories are traveled, and we will reach to desired file or directory. Okay, and in between somewhere we find that this is not a valid directory, then also it will give a error, right? So in the end, we will return start directory location. So I am having an example for that as well. Suppose we are having this structure in our system. Right now we are at the current directory. Okay, so the value of start dir loc, okay, start directory location is 23 in the beginning. Okay, and what is the information in our path variable? So path contain math mcc public and then test.c. So basically what we want to access this file test.c, and where this file is placed, it is placed whatever is the current directory. Inside that there is a math tmcc directory, then inside that math tmcc directory there is a public directory, then inside this public directory there is this file test.c. Okay, and we are supposed to access this file. So the loop will start, and it will search in the current location. It will search for math tmcc. Math tmcc is 19, so the start directory location will now become 19. Okay, and it will go to 19th location in the disk. In the 19th location, we have to find now the second argument, that is public, and public, the value of public is 110. So the start disk location will become 110. We will then go to the third argument. At location 110, we will search for this third document, that is test.c, right? And the location is 39. And once this value is set, we are end with our, so if you see the loop, okay, I is less than part dot length. Okay, we have completed. So we will come out of this loop and we will return the start directory location. So in the end, we will return block number 39, where the actual file is stored that we want to access. Okay, and this is how the name I function will work or used in Unix to search the directory or traverse through the directory structures to access a path or a directory. All right, any question in this? Okay, so it is explained in this slide as well. All right, now just remember one thing, that whenever you want to travel the directory, or whenever you want to do this traverser, there should be a path to reach to each location. Agreed? And that can be done only when the file system is mounted. Okay, so file system mounting is very important. Now what do you mean by mounting? So let me show you a diagram. Okay, so this is the existing file structure. We are having a root directory, then we are having users directory, then we are having Fred, or all the users which belongs to this system. There is a directory, separate directory for each user, and inside each user there are some maybe files or directories, subdirectories which are made by that particular user. So this is how, this is a mounted file structure. Okay, and this is unmounted partition. I mean, there is no way to go to this particular node. And what do you mean by file mounting? File mounting is nothing but you have to attach such nodes with appropriate node. Okay, so you just have to put this node or connect this node with a proper location, right? So this is how we can mount it. So these are also users. Su, Zen are also users. So what we have to do, we have to add, somehow these links to the directory, and this is called file mounting. Okay, so mount is required, and the point where we have to mount it is known as mount point. So in this case, in the example, users is the mount point, and this is the unmounted partition that we have to mount at this particular node. Okay, so this becomes our mount point. So file mounting is very important. Then only you can traverse, from root to your required file. All right. Now come to file sharing. So sharing of file in today's time, it is very, 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 very desirable operations any file system needs to have, right? So we should anyhow allow sharing of files, when we are dealing with this multi-user system environment. Now, whenever we talk about file sharing, we should be very careful because it should be done through a proper protection scheme. Okay, just to have a proper control or accountability that who is doing what with the file, right? So when we talk about the distributed systems, file may be shared across the network and you don't have much control over who are doing what on the file. Okay, so you need to have a proper protection scheme, to avoid any undesirable problem of confidentiality, integrity, or anything, right? So, network file system, that is NFS, which is used in such environment, it is having a common distributed file sharing method, okay, which provides some protection scheme. But when we talk about our normal systems or the the systems that we are using, our protection scheme is actually embedded in the file system that we are using. Okay, so a good file system should provide a means of controlling the access to the file. So in early times, when there is a single user, this was protection was not an issue. So the file system of earlier times have nothing to do with the protection. Okay, but in today's world, if we are or somebody is proposing a file system, that file system should be capable enough to provide such type of access control mechanism or protection scheme when the file is shared among many users, right? So let's see what this protection means. So basically, whenever you create a file, you will become the owner of the file or the creator of the file. Okay, it is somehow your property, and all the control, like you can control, you have the full control of that file, with yourself. So you can, as a owner or the creator, you can decide what can be done with this file, what can be by what can be, I mean, what operations can be performed: read, write, execute, append, delete, list, etc., etc. Okay, so what we can do with this file, and then who can do what. Okay, that is also important. So by whom it can be done, who can do what on the file. Okay, and who we are basically concerned with: the users, which users can do what, and by what I mean what it is a type of access. Okay, whether he can read, write, execute, append, delete, list, etc., right? So this is called controlling access. So the user that creates a file should have all the rights to that file. That user can read the file, write the file, delete the file. The user has, or the creator has, also the power to control the access right for other users. Okay, how other users will deal with this file, right? So we the creator or the owner have that power with them. So for example, imagine a supervisor create a work schedule. Now since supervisor is the creator of the work schedule, he can read it, he can do any modification if required, right, etc, etc. But this work schedule is shared among workers, and workers are only allowed to read the file. This is called controlling the access. Okay, so who are the users? So workers, here in terms, workers are the user. What they can do, they can only read the file, they are not allowed to modify the file. Okay, so this type of protection scheme, this type of controlling access is required to be embedded in file system. Okay, now let's see how operating system can somehow enable this facility, to the users. So for each file, the author could specify every other user's access right to the file, right? So this is one way. This is one way, access control list. How we can make access control list? So what we can do is this: for each file, the author of the file will specify that this user can do this operation. Okay, so user 1 or user A can do read, write, etc. Similarly, B can do this, C can do this, so on and so forth. Okay, this is very flexible. You have full control on which user is doing what, but definitely this is very tedious for the creator of the file, because once you create the file, you have to define all these things. Okay, so instead of this, a common or a trivial hack is, instead of specifying all the user, what the system could do, it could have a default setting. Okay, so just default, by default, make all the user read only file. So just either give no access to the file to all the user, or just give a read only access to the file. Okay, so whenever a creator create a file, user A will get read only access, user B will get read only access, nothing else. Okay, so this could be done. So this is still flexible, because the owner has the power to anyways go and change the access right for a particular user. Okay, so in that sense, it is little less work than the first scheme. It is flexible, and some default access method can be used. Now the problem with both the approaches is the amount of space needed to store this metadata is huge. Okay, because it may be possible that there are hundreds of users in the system, and there are, maybe if you assume that there are 3 or 6 operations, then there is a lots and lots of data for one file. So this, we are talking only about one file. Okay, so space, the amount of space needed to store this access control list is huge. Okay, so anyways, people will come up with some new methods, and in particular, since we are talking about Unix is following a very elegant access control mechanism, which is called Unix access control mechanism, and it is following very simple strategy. They actually divide all the users into 3 types. Okay, so we will not talk about a specific user A, B, C. No, we will talk about the type of user. Okay, so there are 3 type of user. First type is owner, or the creator of the file. Second is group, a group to which the owner belongs, or a group that is created by the owner. Okay, so there is a separate group information which is kept in the Unix. So group file is a separate file where all the groups that are made by the owner or the admin are placed there. Okay, so a group to which the owner belongs. And the third category is everybody else. Okay, so this is called others category. Others means, if you are not belonging to this, you are not belonging to this, then you are other user, right? So there are these 3 broad categories of user: owner, group, and others, right? Now for each of this category, the owner of the file specify the rights, right? So we will associate the rights with directory and file. So directory, each directory and each file is having their own access control rights, right? Now, what are the possible rights? So there are again only three rights: read, write, and execute. A person who is having a read write can read the file, can list a directory. I mean, he can search the file in the directory, he can copy the file. Okay. The person who is having the write, he can write into the file, add the file, delete the file, append the file. All the operations that are related with write operations will come under write. Then there is another write called execute write, in which a user can execute the file. Okay, so if you are using Windows, double click, execute the file. If you are using Unix, there is an option that makes the file executable, right? So whenever you are compiling your C program, you get a dot out file, okay, and that is nothing but a executable file. Okay, so there are many executable files which are available: shell files, script files, and all. So user have to execute it. Okay, so now how to manage this, right? So in Unix access control, okay, so these are the three categories of user: owner, group, and others, right? You can call it others, universal, or whatever. Now the right for each type of the user is specified when the file is created, and these rights can be changed by the owner. And it took only 9 bits to record the access rights, right? So it is fixed that the first, so it is nothing but a tuple of 9 bits, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. These are the 9 bits. The first 3 bits are fixed. The first 3 bits will show owner's right. In this 3 bits, the very first bit among these 3 bits, the very first bit is represent read write, second bit represent write, and third bit represent execute write. Okay, read, write, execute. Similarly, the next 3 bits represent group rights, and that is again same: read, write. This is for read, this is for write, and this is for execute. Again, the next 3 bits represent universal right or others right. Same: read, write, and execute. Okay, now how the information is stored? Since these things are fixed, we need only 9 bits to represent the information. Why? Because depending upon which bit is on and off, we can say that who is having which right, and which is having which is not allowed to do what, something like that. Okay, so for example, if I'm talking about owner's right, if I will switch on these bits, means all the bits are on, so the owner can do read, the owner can do write, the owner can execute the file. Okay, if I want the group to only read the file and execute the file, I don't want him to allow the write operation, so just put a 0. Okay, so in this 9 bit, this is how you can represent the access of the file. Okay, and 9 bits is not a big space, so you have to just store 9 bits for storing access control information. Okay, or storing the protection scheme for each file. Okay, so this is a very, very elegant and efficient way to store this access control. Any question in this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so now let's take one more example, or maybe let's see how we can do this in Unix. So the mode of access is read, write, execute, right? And we are having these 3 types of user: owner, group, and public, right? Now, the first 3 bits are, if they are 1, 1, 1, 1, means read, write, execute, all, everything is allowed, then we can convert it into a decimal number. So this is nothing but 7. Okay, if you convert this into a decimal number, this is nothing but 7. 1 plus 2 plus 4, right? So this is 7. Sorry. If the group is having only read write rights, no, there is no execute right, then what we will write 110, and it is nothing but a 6. Similarly, if others are having only execute right, okay, there should not be any read write right, then you can place 1, and it is converted into decimal and it is 1, right? Now if you want, as a owner, if you want to set this type of permission to any file, so just assume that the name of the file is game. Okay, so for a particular file game, I want this setting: owner should have read write execute, group can only read and write, public any other can only execute the file, right? So what we will have to do, first we have to ask our manager to create a group. So you have to ask somebody to create a group, okay, and say there is a group G. So as I told you, there is a separate file for groups which contain group information, right? So suppose that file is G, or the group name is G. Okay, so now what we have to do, as the creator or owner of the file, we have to give, the first command is change mode. Okay, the full form is change mode. Change mode of access. Okay, so what is mode? The full form of mode is mode of access. So the change mode of access, the system call, or you can say Unix command for this is chmod. Change mode, then you have to give this number. Okay, and what is this number? 761. You already know 7 means read write execute to owner. Next, 6 means group. Group has having 6, that is 110. It means read and write, no execution. And 1 is for others. 1 means 001. It means no read, no write, only execute. Okay, so this, and you have to mention the file name. Okay, file name. This is the file name. And just that. And this one command will set all the required permission for you. Okay, now you have to mention that group, which group belongs to this file. So for that you have to write this command, change group. Okay, change group G and file name. It means that for game file, which group is applicable, G group is applicable. Now the users which belongs to G group can have read and write access. Okay, are you getting my point? Any question here?
Clear,
Can there
ma'am.
be multiple groups?
Yes, so there is a group file, right? So in that group file, you can add more groups.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so this is all about how, you know, the file is searched or you know, somehow maintained by operating system, right? How file management is done by operating system, and what are the protection implications on a file which are applicable, and how they are imposed by the operating system. Okay, which is definitely a part of file system as well. Now, so this is this you know, the background work is done. Now what we have to do, we have to actually store the file on the disk. Till now we just have maintained the copies, or we just stored the metadata information about the file, right? So if you remember from one of our previous slides, we have mentioned that whenever you are opening or creating a file, what happened, the directory structure has been searched, you know, all the entries related to that file has been made. Then you have to find free blocks where you will actually store the file. Once all those information has been found, you will make the entry of the first free block into the directory structure, and then you will say that okay, now the file is ready to use. Okay, so our next job is, so we already made the entry in the directory structure. Our next job is to find the free space. Okay, so actually we want to allocate the file a disk space.